What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Here's ancient North Americans. Alright, this book right here is one of the ancient South Americans too. This is ancient North Americans. Alright, I'm gonna turn. This is more of an archaeological book. I'm gonna try to get the page. I want to say 293. 293. Right here is the Lower Michigan late woodland. I don't know if I can get it because I'm in the shade. I'm outside, but I'm going to read it. All right. The late woodland occupations in Michigan begin with complexes similar to that of the Fort Wayne Mound, with a strong infusion of concepts and items also found in the post-Hopewell Mound intrusive culture of Ohio. This similarity is most evident in the southeastern half of the Lower Peninsula. This area also participated in the developments that produced the Glen Mire in Ontario, in a series of steps represented as such sites at the Rivari Ox Vase at the Youngji site. There are even suggestions that this area of Michigan was occupied by the Algonquin speakers, and there are maps by linguists and ethnologists that show this. I suspect the situation here was much like that of northern, eastern, and southern borders of the Five Nations and the Hurons, where Algonquin-speaking groups shared ceramic and Unitarian tool developments with their neighbors. The western and northern section of the Lower Peninsula were interacting with developments in Wisconsin. From about AD 700 to 1100, the ceramic treatment reflects connections with the late woodland, Mississippian, and the Oneida styles. There are other similarities as well, for this area is part of Lake Forest environment, which has produced a strong east-west cultural belt for at least 4,500 years. The June Tinin site is perhaps the best known of the typical sites, and properly reflect the developments in adjoining areas not yet delimited in any detail. The population in these sections were primarily hunters and gatherers who engaged in some agriculture. Their descendants appear on the historic horizon as the Ottawa and Chippewa. The Fort Ancient Societies. Fort Ancient covers an area nearly equivalent to that occupied by the Adena Hopewell occupation before it. The several Fort Ancient Societies date from somewhere before AD 900 to close to AD 1600. They represent regional groupings in the valleys of tributaries of the Ohio and along the Ohio River. And over time, they became increasingly dependent on agriculture and increasingly close to Middle Mississippi cultural configurations. In the Miami and Sittatu valleys, the earlier Fort Ancient sites clearly derived both culturally and genetically from late woodland societies. Early houses are circular, later ones are rectangular. Some sites have evidence of a central courtyard, and a platform mound was excavated at Byam's site. These sites range from 1.2 to 4 hectares, and probably had population of a few hundred people at a time. A wide variety of burial positions were practiced, but single extended burials are most common. The late large Fort Ancient sites along the Ohio often had palaces and large rectangular house patterns 15 by 21 meters, as well as the more normal 5.5 to 7.5 meter houses. The houses had circular fire basins and 2 center posts. The later pottery is all shell tempered Mississippi jar form bowls, pans, and few red plates. By at least AD 1400, shell gorgets of styles normally associated with central and eastern Tennessee make their appearance in Fort Ancient sites. the result of trade and exchange along the old paths of the past, indicate new religious integrating devices between these two areas. The trade goods are of a period that coincides with the suggestive but hardly precise references to Shawnee groups in the Ohio Valley. The reason I read that is because I'm talking about how it mentioned the term tributaries. Tributaries are the very different rivers that contribute to another river, you know. And I mentioned before how a lot of these cultures have some similarities because they travel along the different riverbeds. That was an ancient highway. So you have to understand that when you study this history. That's how a lot of stuff, some of the stuff is similar because you had different groups and different tribes who would break off and they use a different riverbed to travel. And they build monuments by the large bodies of water. Okay. And this is the image of supposedly a mound and a plaza. All right, and then the river is right off from the mound or the pyramid, whatever. All right. Here's a figure that was found over near the Cahokia area. All right. Known as yogic position, you see that with ancient Egypt a lot. How he's sitting, legs folded, arms down, hands down. You see that with ancient Egypt. You know. Also looking at on top of on the forehead. All right. I'm going to go to read this quick, the Illinois Valley. I don't know if I'm going to read this whole thing, at least part of it, at least. Okay, the Illinois Valley. Remember, the ones who were in Illinois came up from the south. There was a brother who came on my site, mentioned he had originated in the south. That's true. They came from the south and went north. The Illinois Valley. Several late woodland societies in the Illinois Valley increased in population and showed other indications of changes leading up to about AD 1000. Well, there is evidence of a gradual shift towards a Cahokia-influenced form of Mississippian. Vessels of Rami and Powell types were transferred along with other items from the American bottom. In the Spoon River area, these subsequently appears by AD 1100 a series of 7 fortified towns and bluffs, strategically located near a major tributary stream on the west side of the Illinois that gave easy access to the very environmental zones. See how they travel? Only the Larson site was a fortified settlement, with the palisade enclosing an area of about 8 hit acres. The Larson-type towns had 1 or 2 platform mounds, a plaza, a semi-subterranean rectangular houses in planned rows. The houses ranged from fewer than 100 to well over 200 and showed continuing occupation for some period of time. The Larson towns were associated with hamlets, camps, and smaller, specialized activity areas. Population size would have ranged from about 250 to 400 for the smaller towns and 600 to 700 for the larger ones. Okay. The cemeteries were located near the bluff and outside of the central town area. The best known cemetery, Dixon Mound, is a burial area for a nearby hamlet. Damn bugs. And was in existence for some 300 years. About 250 burials have been preserved after excavation, but an unknown number were either removed or have been not yet excavated. Neither at Dixon nor at other Larson community cemeteries have any of the dope barriers and the types of burial goods usually associated with community leaders. So social stratification does not seem to have been well developed. These societies apparently occupied the town subsequently and were still present around AD 1400 to 1500, when there appears an interesting merger. Okay, on the Ota pottery decoration placed on local vessel forms at the Crable site and a few other locations. Their earlier association material culture items have been primarily with Cahokia. This association should not be interpreted as one of political economic domination by culture, but as a local population which gradually adopted over many years their own settlement pattern attuned to the specific Spoon River area. Subsistence attractive patterns that had developed over thousands of years continue to be important and supplemented an increasing food supply resulting in maize agriculture. Okay, I guess I read the Ohio Valley too then. The Ohio Valley. The two best known centers for the Lower Ohio River Valley are the Concade site in southern Illinois and the Angel site a short distance east of Evansville, Indiana. In neither area does anything occur resembling the gradual, continuous change of the late woodland to the Mississippi that is seen in the American bottom. Both have their closest cultural relationships with the Tennessee Cumberland valleys in Kentucky and Tennessee. The Caneland site in its earlier period received trade materials from the early Cahokia in the form of ramie and related pottery and flint from Mill Creek in southwestern Illinois. Later relations with the Tennessee are dominant, as evident particularly in large amount of Dover flint. Mueller believes that the total area known to have been occupied in the town center and the immediate neighborhood is about 36 head acres. There were some 250 structures. The population, assuming 5 persons, a structure would have been 1,250 people, with only 400 in the central area. Mueller's intensive survey in the Black Bottom indicates that the Aboriginal horticulture productivity under 621 head-acres of land in the settlement system supporting Concade would have been sufficient for about 1,500 people. He also feels that such a workforce was adequate to have built the platform mounds bordering the plaza and Bat, Bast, Bat, Bastallion palisade of the town. Excuse me. Concade was occupied from about AD 1150 to about AD 1500. The population here left little evidence of their participation in the southeastern ceremonial complex, but perhaps this is because no burial area was administrative, war, or religious leaders had yet been identified. Supporting settlements of smaller hamlets, camps, or limited activities are primarily located in the floodplain environmental zone. The bottomlands were also a fine location in which to capitalize on the rich native food sources that, coupled with the tropical cotyledons, made a more than adequate diet in most years. In southwestern Indiana, the Angel site and contemporary small villages, hamlets, farmstead, and camps are distributed along the Ohio River for about 100 kilometers and also along the Lower Wabash. The Angel site is the only town and its 40 head acres are enclosed on 3 sides by a battalioned palisade. It lies on a low terrace adjacent to the Ohio River. There were 5 platform mounds. Mound A is a split-level construction overlooking the plaza area to the west that was surrounded by individual houses. Population estimates for Angel range from 1,000 to 3,000. It was a functioning civic ceremonial center from about AD 1200 to 1400, and most of the population of the total Angel society occupied it. Most of the satellite hamlets and smaller transit settlements were also on the low terrace bordering the major streams, but a few have been identified on high terraces in the upland location. The major exploration zone was along the rivers, with the easily tilted soils and many varieties of native food, game, and fish, but other ecological zones also contributed. The most intensively occupied area was in the eastern part, where there were many superimposed house structures with square to rectangular floors. The houses were of usual wattle and dab type, and artifacts recovered included a well-developed Mississippian assemblage of pottery bowls, fabric-impressed salt pans, bottles, plates, and jars. Perhaps the most distinctive feature of this assemblage is angel negative painted decoration plates, placed most often on interior plate rims. There are a few examples of female effigies and narrow neck bottles with that same decorative technique. A few of the designs are there associated with the southeastern ceremonial complex. The small amount of trade pottery includes examples of Ramses incise form, incise form, the earlier occupation, as well as a few examples from the lower Mississippi Valley and the Caddoan area. Three of the arrow point closely resemble the alba from the Caddoan area. Most of the materials used in manufacturing artifacts come from the local area, but some of the holes were made from Mill Creek Church. A well-made kneeling male effigy figure was recovered from Mount F on the western part of the site. The figure is made of fluorite and was recovered from an intrusive burial in the upper level of the mound. A highly similar form excavated in Union County, Illinois, in the latter part of the 19th century has been illustrated. Such stone effigies are most common in the Mid-South, are also found in male-female pairs, and in some instances are associated with charnel house remains, as in the case at Angel. Following the Angel occupation, distinctly different Mississippian complex called the Carborn-Wellborn phase. It has been a more dispersed pattern of settlement without fortified towns, but with large and small villages, hamlets, farmsteads, and camps. The large villages have not had extensive excavation, but may have had population of 350 or so. They are also located either on or close to the Ohio Wabash floodplain. This complex dates from about AD 1450 to 1650 with ceramic connections to the Mississippi Valley near the confluence of the Ohio. Decorative design and techniques with some similarities to those of Oneota also occur. Disc pipes at these sites are also indicative of the late prehistoric time period. I'm going to stop there. The reason I read all that, I was mainly talking about how a lot of those mounds are built by waterways. I mentioned that over and over again. And then they built and constructed different plazas at certain areas. Now, what you also have to understand is that, like I said before, they use the highways, they use the riverbeds as highways. So they understood the river channels, how they flow, the direction that they flow, and how they have to sail through within the river channels. There was a high advanced civilization here in America. These weren't primitive people, all right? And a lot of these anthropologists and archaeologists know this, but they continue to tell you that, you come over here as slaves, or the people here were very primitive and simple-minded, or if they don't knock away their achievements, then they try to make them into either white people or some pale Asian type people, Asiatic people, when they weren't. This is why it's important, even though there's a lot of this stuff is some archaeological BS, a lot of it is. But when you see, like I said, here's the Ohio River, and here's a large plaza. They always build by large bodies of water so they can go about and they can travel and they can trade and go down the riverbeds and trade at other places, and then also build in other areas by using the river streams. All right, and look at this figure I showed you before. I showed you this figure also in Tennessee, and you see this with ancient Egypt. So you don't have to understand that. Like I said before, our history goes beyond slavery. All right, it goes way beyond slavery, and we got to understand that, man. And the more and more we understand that, the better off we're gonna be. All right. So this is my quick video for now. I may try to make another one tomorrow. I decided to throw this one together. All right, brothers and sisters, I love you. Peace and love.